It took me 5 years to tell my best friend that I was not a Christian anymore. That same summer, I tried to write another close friend that I grew up with, who, like my best friend, is still a Christian. It took another year before I could finish and mail it to her. Sometimes it takes a while to say what you mean to. I need to write you this letter, not just because I haven't written you back from the epic letter you sent me in the fall, but because there's a very important part of my life I never talked to you about. And in that sense, I've owed you this for much longer. Yesterday, we were in a town called Alex Bay. I really felt like I had been there before, and so I told my friend I had to go for a while, and I walked around until I found it. In February 2004, in the dead of winter, I rode my bike from Rochester to Potsdam. On the second night, late in the winter dark, I laid down on a sidewalk on the side of a church in Alex Bay because the sidewalk was warmer than the snow. Someone must have noticed because the police got called and they found me. The cops couldn't understand me. There was nothing I could say to them, so they could. They were sure I was either transporting drugs or mentally unstable, and when they realized neither of these were true, they didn't know what to do, so they told me to leave or be arrested. So I left. I biked all night that night, watched the sunrise on my bike, and fell asleep in my sleeping bag under a table in McDonald's. That's the spot I found. Something physically real to match a memory that sometimes doesn't feel real, and a place I never went back to, fighting for my life to be someone and believe something that I couldn't be and I couldn't believe, and the bike was the only way I knew to be braver and stronger than the sadness. When I saw you last time, you asked me about my faith, and I did what I always do with anyone, which is to not talk about it. I did this writing activity where I was asked to write down what is important to you, and so I wrote down a lot of words that came to mind, and then at the very end I wrote down one more thing, and that's my story. Everyone has a story. It's what makes them who they are. This is a little bit of mine. When I was 14, I met my young life leader. Mike was 23, the embodiment of everything that is cool, and also a really good guy. Young life is centered on relationships. As a young life leader, you build a relationship with the kid, and this allows you to hold their hand as you introduce them to Christ and having a relationship with Him. Mike would take us hiking and camping, and we would play football and talk about sex and relationships and be guys and learn about Jesus. And that summer he took us to Saranac Village, which is a young life camp in the Adirondacks. Every night, the 300 of us emotionally heightened teenagers would cram into a room to sit on the floor and listen to a leader talk about who Jesus was. Near the end of the week, on a hot August night, he held up a glass of water in front of everyone and he said, "Who would like this water?" And of course, hands shoot up all over the place. And then he took the water and he spit in it. And he held it back up and he said, "Who wants it now?" And the room fell into a stunned silence. I was frozen. I had never understood it like this before. The speaker asked again, "How much urine is acceptable in your drinking water?" A drop. He started to talk about Jesus, about everything that he went through, about the cat of nine tails digging into his back, tearing off his flesh, that when he was on the cross, he had to push himself up by the nails in his feet every time he needed to breathe so that he wouldn't suffocate, that they were going to kill Barabbas, but Jesus took his place. He took my place. He did this for me. I did this. I am that water. Jesus gave up everything for me so that I could be with him. They showed a video of Jesus being crucified with music. Kids were crying all over the place. I had accepted Jesus before, but I had never understood it or felt it like this. We went on from there, and Jesus became the center of my world. By the end of high school, I was leading a Bible study in my public school, attending every conference and young life event or retreat I could, and had what I believed was a relationship with Jesus. During my study halls, I would go outside and read my Bible and pray. We called this a quiet time. It's how you get closer to God. I disbelieved evolution. I thought that biology teachers were bad. I wrote a lot of my high school English papers and poems about God. Many of my friends from Young Life seemed to fade out of the Christian scene and start living normal teenager lives. I thought this must be because they were not as serious about it as me, or maybe they were just drawn away by the stuff of the world, things like materials, or casual sex, anything that would feel good for a while but would never satisfy, would never make you complete. I never considered the implications of what might actually be happening as I became more and more different from most of my friends. College lets you define yourself again. I defined myself as a Jesus-loving college kid. One of the first nights, 2 upperclassmen came to my dorm room and told me they were Christians. I met them again a week later in church and found out that I was the only room that they visited, that they were praying and ended up at my room. It was almost too much to take in. It felt like God was specifically pursuing me for something special. I became friends with these guys and we started praying together, sometimes late into the night. We would also do prayer walks. This involved walking around campuses and walking up to strangers and saying, "Hi, I'm a Christian and I'm praying for the campus, and I was wondering if you would like prayer for anything." And sometimes those would lead to conversations about Jesus where we would share the gospel. This is a video from the church I was attending. I loved my church. Here's one of the friends that I prayed with. This is pretty much how we prayed.
Oh, Jesus, we don't need a program. Jesus, we need you. God, we need your Holy Spirit. Oh, God. God, please have mercy on the campuses, God. God, forgive us for the drunkenness, God. God, forgive us for the pornography, God. God, please forgive us for the selfish lifestyles, God. Oh, Jesus, every college student at St. Lawrence, Father God. Please, Lord God, you impact them, Father. God, holy Lord God, let the lost have a hunger for you, Lord God. Holy Lord God, let there be signs and wonders and miracles. Please take back all those prodigals, Father God. The people that have run away from you, Lord. God, the people that are living for themselves, Lord God. Please reveal yourself, Father God. Thank you that the effective prayer of a righteous man avails much, Father.
These are some other people from my community.
Use us, Lord, to say, "Hear my sending."
Yes.
There are people all around you in the harvest field. God wants to use you to win them. He wants to use you to show them the love of Christ.
Temporarily, but God, something that affects their life for eternity. Lord, we believe you for that kind of an encounter. Every person in St. Lawrence County, right?
Oh, Jesus will be honored. And Jesus will be glorified.
The generation before you didn't do the job. We take responsibility for it. But God is passing on you the responsibility to go into your high schools and win them. And I firmly believe that you can. There was one school where just a couple people started praying. Before long, 75% of the school got saved.
And I got involved in this incredible church.
And that's me when I was 18.
Here, I got to come out here a lot and spend time talking to the living God. And because of what Jesus did for us, we don't even have to be like, God,
I was taking a literature class, and the professor chose parts of the Bible for our reading. He talked about the Bible like ordinary ancient literature and mythology, that the book of Genesis, for example, was not written by one author, but many, each promoting their own religious view. I knew he was wrong. I often debated him, and I prayed for him to know Jesus. He said he used to be a Christian. In my mind, I couldn't believe that he had ever been a true Christian. He may have gone to church, but once you know Jesus, how can you unknow him? This professor sought me out. We talked by email and eventually met outside of class. He asked me to write a paper explaining why I believed in God, which I did excitedly, using only Christian resources and apologetics like C.S. Lewis and Lee Strobel. He directed me to websites like the Flying Spaghetti Monster, which at the time I thought was about the dumbest thing ever. He also recommended to me books on science and evolution, none of which I read, because I already knew what I knew. He could have helped me. He was probably a brilliant man who could have changed my life. Instead, I chose a way of years of hurt, finding this by myself.